Naruto is a great series, but it's also a deeply flawed series. Despite that, I cut Kishimoto some slack. He had to draw and write 20 pages of Naruto every week for 14 years by himself. Weekly shonen manga is not as easy to write as something like a book where you can revise and edit as much as you'd like. That being said, there are still plenty of plot holes, missed opportunities, inconsistencies, and downright shitty moments that we can't ignore. But I got you, Kishimoto. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into writing that rough draft. I'ma touch it up for a final draft. With all the experts constantly criticizing Naruto, it's time to put all those issues we have with the series together. Here's absolutely everything that should be changed about the entire Naruto series, in my opinion, as quick as I can make it in no particular order. Assume any edits I don't make are things I don't believe should be changed. If you have any ideas on things I missed or changes you disagree with, comment below. Spoiler alert for the entire series. This is gonna fucking suck, ready? Jiraiya was apparently named the godfather of Naruto by Minato and Kushina, yet Jiraiya's first interaction with Naruto in the series makes it seem like Jiraiya barely knew the kid existed, aside from being the Nine-Tails. Jiraiya should acknowledge Naruto as his godson, at least in his head, and perhaps feel bad that he's been gone for so long. This makes their sort of father-son relationship more grounded and gives Jiraiya actual motivation to make him a student. The whole thing about Naruto failing the graduation exam 3 times is pretty well known and downright bullshit considering he's the same age as all the other kids in his class. This line needs to be tossed. In the early series, Naruto hesitated to use the multi-shadow clone jutsu way too much. Kishimoto stated that he shouldn't have introduced such a powerful ability too early, and I agree. Naruto should have been able to spawn maybe a dozen or so shadow clones and kick the shit out of Mizuki, but the whole 1,000 shadow clones, I mean, he should have just gradually got better at it. Having too many moments where he gets his ass beat without ever thinking to use such a broken ability kind of makes this introduction pointless. Same thing goes for the Nine-Tails power after training with Jiraiya for the Chunin exams. Obviously, when you learn to draw upon a badass power like the Nine-Tails, he'd want to use that as much as possible, but he doesn't, and it's awkward. And it really doesn't make sense considering all he had to do was ask Kurama to give it to him the first time they met. I think they should have nerfed it to the point where he could only draw upon its power if his life was threatened and the fox did it to protect itself. That way current fights where he didn't use the fox wouldn't have to be rewritten for the most part. And it also goes better with Kurama's selfish nature. Perhaps in the fight with Neji, Naruto refusing to give up really did put his life in danger given Neji's ability to target his internal organs, and getting the Nine-Tails' power was a result of that. Same thing versus Gaara, etc. Keeping that last point in mind, after the time skip where Naruto and Jiraiya were supposed to be training to control the Nine-Tails' power, perhaps that's when they learn how to draw upon its power at will, instead of relying on Naruto's life being threatened. That would justify the seemingly little results Naruto made after the time skip because he can now use the fox whenever he wants, minus when he gets to the fourth-tailed state because him losing control at that point is pretty awesome. Also, we are first introduced to the Nine-Tails' chakra in this series as this red, airy stream of chakra. However, later in the series, it's almost exclusively shown as that bright red bubbly chakra. It should just be the bubbly chakra from the start. The silly thing about the tailed beasts is that they're completely immortal. If their Jinchuriki dies, they basically reappear somewhere in a couple of days. I get it, they're divided up beasts that descended from the god tree, but since I'm now liking the idea of the tailed beasts protecting their Jinchuriki in order to protect themselves, how about we only make the 10 tails immortal, and just make the 9 beasts some of the most powerful beings who are at the risk of dying if their Jinchuriki dies, so they protect them as much as they need to. It's not that much of a stretch. In fact, it kind of makes the rules for the tailed beasts a little more set in stone. I get it, that would kind of mean Naruto couldn't die against the vast majority of enemies, which lowers the stakes, but that aspect of the tailed beast wouldn't need to be revealed until later anyways, so it's not like anyone would ever know for most of the series. Also, due to that change, to keep the circumstances of Rin Nohara's death relatively the same, instead of being targeted after becoming the Jinchuriki of the Three Tails, it would work the same if she's kidnapped to later become the Jinchuriki, and she sacrifices herself in Kakashi's Chidori to keep that from happening. Same impact. Speaking of Kakashi, when he first reveals his Sharingan against Zabuza, Sasuke definitely should have been upset about Kakashi having the signature power of his slaughtered clan, which is completely genetically exclusive to the Uchiha. There should be a scene where he interrogates Kakashi for having the Sharingan, and perhaps that's where we can first learn about what happened to Sasuke's clan and about Obito. Also, Kakashi is supposed to have the Mangekyo Sharingan early in the series, but we never see it. Kakashi should have introduced it in his battle with Itachi, and maybe even introduced Kamui. Since we're later supposed to believe that Itachi was a pretty good guy, how about he doesn't use Tsukuyomi to stab Kakashi continuously for 72 hours? Also, Itachi should visibly have the Mangekyo Sharingan when he's first introduced. Kishimoto said he didn't finalize the design at the time, so fix it. Danzo, a crucial elder to Konoha and a major villain in part 2, should be introduced before the time skip, preferably around the time the third Hokage died and the elders approached Jiraiya to become Hokage. Also, Danzo's suicide in the fight fight against Sasuke was absolutely pointless. Just let Sasuke kill him. It adds to his drowned in the darkness persona at the time perfectly. Plus, Danzo just stole a page out of Datara's book. So unoriginal. Biju mode is definitely cool, but it's completely confusing why no other Jinchuriki has this power. In my opinion, I think it would make more sense that once Naruto defeats and extracts Kurama's chakra, he should only have control over the power similar to Killer Bees, minus switching places with the tailed beast given Kurama's resentment to work with Naruto. This would still make Naruto just as powerful as before if combined with the Sage mode. I would love to see the Sage mode mixed with that dark red-tailed beast form. And only when Kurama cooperates with Naruto should Naruto be able to switch places with him like Killer Bee and gain his full power. But the whole yellow chakra thing should be held off until the 6 Paths Sage mode. That would make the parallel with Asura's 6 Paths Sage mode make more sense. Naruto should keep that badass red cloak he's seen wearing at the beginning of the pain fight. I get that the Nine Tails was supposed to burn it off or something, but why wouldn't his regular clothes burn off as well? Honestly, just keep the cloak for the rest of the series, it's fitting. Also, in terms of the tailed beasts, the fact that how powerful they are depends on the amount of tails they have makes very little sense. Why wouldn't Hagoromo just split up the 10 tails evenly given how powerful it was? Mathematically, that would make a lot more sense in terms of what Hagoromo was trying to achieve with dividing its power. I thought it was pretty dumb that Minato apparently had Perfect Sage mode and the Biju mode just so he could fight alongside his son. I think that was too forced, and given how Minato with his flying Raijin is already pretty broken, was that really necessary? Did he really have to seal the other half of the Nine Tails inside himself if no other Jinchuriki ever needed to do so? If so, what happened to the tailed beast needing to reappear after the Jinchuriki dies? Also, why couldn't Minato use Sage mode against Obito? He said he's bad at using Sage mode, but he's a perfect Sage, which is better than Jiraiya ever was. No, Sage mode should have wiped the floor with Obito. Just too plot holey. Can we just not? All of the Jinchuriki active during Naruto's life should get scenes shown here and there facing off against the Akatsuki. Why go through the trouble of making them so uniquely designed if most of them are only mentioned in passing? This would also help raise concern among nations to protect their Jinchuriki earlier in the series, focusing the plot and helping build up the Shinobi Alliance in the Fourth War. The concern only starts up at the beginning of Part 2, which is odd considering the Jinchuriki had presumably been being kidnapped by the Akatsuki for quite some time. Perhaps start adding such scenes of the Jinchuriki around the time the Akatsuki is introduced with Kisame and Itachi. It would have been so awesome to see Sasuke fight past members of the Konoha 11 after the time skip. Perhaps in their pursuit for Sasuke before the Kage Summit, or even before the Sasuke vs Itachi fight, we see them find Sasuke before Naruto and gets the chance to try and take them on themselves. Characters I'd personally love to see duke it out with older Sasuke would be Rock Lee, so they can rematch and he can finally show Sasuke the 8 gates, and Neji because he was the top of his class just like Sasuke was, and a fight comparing the Sharingan and Byakugan would be epic. Since the Hyuga and the Byakugan are direct descendants of Hamura, the Sage of Six Paths' brother and the literal shinobi god of the moon, the Hyuga clan should definitely feel a little more important. Not too much more important because regardless of that lineage, they're really only relevant until much later, but perhaps some more scenes where we get a better semblance of their prominence. Also during the Fourth War, we should have seen Neji face off with his reanimated father, not have his father fight completely unrelated characters. It was a missed opportunity. During Itachi's fight with Sasuke, Itachi makes a point about only 2 people ever awakening the Mangekyo, Madara and Itachi. However, this is absolute bullshit, seeing as how many characters have actually awakened it. I understand that Itachi was creating a persona to persuade Sasuke to take his eyes and go after Obito, but wasn't Obito assisting in the clan's genocide good enough a reason? The line should just be removed entirely. Sasuke should have stuck with his original design after the time skip. He was fine as hell back then. His hair didn't grow over his forehead, so he didn't look too rugged and emo. Got that sexy Fabio look with the white silk shirt splitting down, showing off his cleavage. Loved the arm guards. And then he went all Noctis on us and downgraded, albeit just a little bit, with a gray blazer. I get the whole physical change to emphasize their emotional change trope that so many writers use, but nah, the original was a lot cooler and reflected Sasuke's post-time skip persona a lot better in my opinion. When Sasuke has his first reunion with Team 7 after the time skip, he definitely had no reason to try and kill Naruto or anyone else for that matter, considering he had this no-killing rule later on with Team Heavy. Also, putting up the gesture for Kirin was completely pointless given how there was no thunderclouds present at the time. The whole thing was brutally out of character. He should have just fended them off when they tried to capture him and escaped like he did at the end. Karin should have gotten over Sasuke and joined sides with Konoha after being used and nearly killed by him. Having her still be obsessed with him afterwards is pretty much pointless and serves to make her character more annoying for no good reason. Tsunade getting pummeled by Kabuto in the early series cheapened her role as a Sannin and the next Hokage. Come on, she should have at least not freaked out and let herself get repeatedly kicked around. I get that they needed Naruto to introduce the Rasengan and save the day, but they didn't have to downplay Tsunade so much. Kabuto should not have become this major villain during the Fourth War by basically absorbing Orochimaru and surpassing him. How about just have Kabuto revive Orochimaru from Anko? Orochimaru mastering the reanimation jutsu and gaining Sage mode, and then allying with Obito is a lot more believable than Kabuto doing so, let's be real. There's a famous plot hole where Orochimaru knows how to undo the Reaper Death Seal on his arms by using the Shinigami mask. However, if that was the case, it would have made sense for Orochimaru to do this a long time ago, seeing as how he knew that the Shinigami mask existed. Yet he didn't, and struggled with a lack of arms for far too long. To rewrite this, perhaps in Kabuto's pursuit to revive Orochimaru that I mentioned earlier, Kabuto continues the research Orochimaru was doing on the Reaper Death Seal and then discovers the existence of the mask. Makes a bit more sense that way. Sasuke needed to use Kirin more, because Kirin was broken as fuck and was one of the biggest eye candies in the series. You don't spend 3 years creating a jutsu to supposedly wipe out Itachi, only to never use it again canonically. Obito is able to use Kamui far too often. Given how the Mangekyo is supposedly supposed to blind a person after being overused, it makes zero sense that Obito can thoughtlessly spam Kamui with his regular Mangekyo. One way to get around this would be to give him the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which we know requires a close relative's eyes. I thought this would be an interesting way for Obito to look into who his parents were, giving him more character development as he discovers the parents he never knew and mercilessly steals one of their eyes for his Eternal Mangekyo because they were assholes who abandoned him, so he shouldn't care. And this would act as another moment to strengthen Obito's resentment towards the real world and his indifference towards those supposed to be close to him for the sake of his goal. This is a more natural way for him to be able to use Kamui so often, other than just bending the rules and shrugging it off. Kakashi definitely needs to utilize his prowess as the man of 1,000 jutsus far more. He's hyped up in the beginning with such an ability, yet he barely uses any cool jutsus to defeat enemies at any point in the series. He's mostly only seen using Lightning Blade. He needs to start whipping out jutsus from all nature transformations and start living up to that hype. Kakashi should have been the one to talk no jutsu Obito into realizing he was wrong. Naruto generally said the same things that Kakashi had already said, but I guess proved that Naruto's will and Obito's old will was truly strong enough to bring peace. You didn't need Naruto to reach out to him in order to do that. Just let Kakashi say, "See? You getting your ass beat by this boy. You're done, kid." It just adds to the connection the two had. Kakashi straight up should not have died against Pain. Yes, the Rinnegan is truckload stronger than the Mangekyo that Kakashi had, but in the fight, Kakashi acted so ridiculously stupid that it was completely out of character. He literally only charged at him with Lightning Blade, and that was it. Kakashi should have realized that attacking Pain head-on was a bad idea given how much visibly stronger the Rinnegan was, and should have fallen back to report to Tsunade and others of his observations. He shouldn't have croaked so carelessly from a needle to the head. I get that Kishi wanted a moment where Kakashi meets his dad in the afterlife and that Kakashi would be revived anyways, but you could have just had a moment with his dad with the reanimation jutsu and the fourth war. Kakashi shouldn't be stomped so carelessly, especially since he's supposed to be Kage level. Kaguya's revival in the final battle came completely out of nowhere and seriously cheapened Madara as a villain. I honestly believe she should have never been brought back and Madara should have remained the final boss. I get the whole Black Zetsu thing, but his character apparently orchestrating all of shinobi history also came out of nowhere and was kinda bullshit. Kishimoto stated he had no idea how to defeat Madara, but since Kaguya was defeated, it's kind of easy to imagine Madara being defeated in the same way, by sealing him with the 6 Paths Chibaku Tensei in some other dimension, or some other magical sealing jutsu Hagoromo pulled out of his trick hat. Would that be so hard? Perhaps then having the story of Zetsu and reviving Kaguya to protect the world for some greater threat could be brought back to the Boruto sequel. But you can't just shit on Madara like that. Not after all the hype we went through after the time skip. Kakashi should not have been able to use the perfect Susanoo. Yes, he was given both of Obito's eyes and Obito's chakra, but you can't suddenly cheapen the process of mastering the Susanoo over time. It would have been okay if Kakashi summoned a base Susanoo to protect Sakura and himself, but the perfect Susanoo is just ridiculous. You can't do that, Kishi, I'm sorry. Also, Kakashi should not have been able to spam Kamui during the Fourth War. Sorry. Maybe if he got the eyes of Obito's new Eternal Mangekyo that I talked about, but not for most of the war. Might Guy using the Gate of Death should have killed him. It would have been a very impactful death and moment for Guy, and Naruto using his 6 Paths ability to preserve his life completely cheapened the moment. Also, he should have continued to use the 8th Gate after Naruto and Sasuke awoke in order to use that as a diversion. Something about Naruto versus Sasuke's final battle seemed a little rushed to me. While the original battle took place between 15 chapters, the final battle is only 6 chapters. The battles are fundamentally different, considering the first battle was them at a much less powerful state and were constantly one-upping each other with new powers, and included a lengthy flashback, while the final battle was them using techniques we already knew they had and were both massive powerhouses. However, such a monumental fight deserved just a little bit more in my opinion. I would have loved to see Sasuke discover his Rinnegan's ability to travel between dimensions, and they continue to duke it out in some unknown land. I would have also loved to see them use even more familiar abilities, like Naruto's creative barrage of Rasengans, Kirin, more Blaze release, just a little bit more. Still a great fight, but too important to glaze over. The final battle made a point about Sasuke as a kid thinking about Naruto a lot, and that Naruto's recklessness started rubbing off on him and reminding him of his family, but we practically never get this feeling in the original series. Having a flashback regarding this at some point before the time skip would have made that sentiment feel more natural. It was also stated that Sasuke began to form close bonds with his team early in the series before his brother reminded him of his revenge. Yet that sentiment is also kind of weak, considering Sasuke always seemed to think selfishly and as though his team were always a drag. There should be more scenes and moments where Sasuke starts to think of them as friends and enjoy going on missions with them, while still incorporating his struggle for revenge and thinking that friendship is a weakness. Sakura needs more fight scenes. A lot of her potential as a strong female character is completely wasted without it. I personally recommend Sakura beating Ino in the Chunin exams, Sakura perhaps beating someone else in the Chunin exams, Sakura versus Konan during the Pain Invasion, and Sakura having more of a combat role in the Fourth War. These fights would be done more effectively if they utilized her intelligence more, which was a big point of her character and should potentially rival someone like Shikamaru. It's also stated early on that she was supposed to be talented in Genjutsu, presumably similar to Kurenai or the second Mizukage, yet this is never seen. It would be cool if she got some cool Genjutsu abilities. Yes, she's a medical specialist, I get it. Then why give her a buff and power at all after the time skip? It's just wasted potential. Having Sakura be unhealthily obsessed with Sasuke even after learning he's become an international criminal seems very unreasonable to me, given the two weren't that deeply connected in the first place. I personally believe that should have been the point where Sakura got over her feelings for Sasuke and getting over her helplessness when it came to Sasuke. I also think it would have been super badass if instead of stupidly trying to plead to join Sasuke, she would have just ran up and punched him as hard as possible out of frustration for who he's become. That would have been such an "oh shit" moment. And yes, it would make sense because he was blinded by overusing the Mangekyo, just like how she was almost able to stab him in the back later. Shut up. On the subject of Sasuke and Sakura, seeing as how they magically ended up as a couple in the end despite Sasuke's seeming indifference to Sakura, there definitely should have been more moments with Sasuke reciprocating affection towards her, perhaps by acknowledging she's attractive or by feeling comforted when she takes care of him and how it reminds him of his mother. I don't know. Something other than "arigato." And then suddenly, boom, baby salad. Come on. In terms of how Sakura and Sasuke actually come together, once Sasuke is released from the curse of hatred, he just reconciles with Sakura, and he sort of wins her trust back and the two start over. At least it's more believable than before. Speaking of couples, Naruto and Hinata. I think how it was handled up until the Pain arc was perfect given their two characters, but when Hinata confessed why she loved him and nearly died for Naruto's shish kebab looking ass, and he nine-tails hulked out because of it, yeah, he probably should have said something after the battle was over. I get it, he's dense. And the last Naruto movie made a point about how he doesn't understand love. But honestly, Naruto had a very clear crush on Sakura, and Naruto was curious about how Kushina and Minato fell in love. The guy at least understands lust. He even knew what Sakura was getting at when she told him that she loved him. He should have approached Hinata after the battle, admitted he was dumb for not noticing her sooner, felt grateful that someone acknowledged him even when he was younger and felt like he had no one, and then boom, you get yourself a smooch and you now have a thing with Hinata. Of course, no one has time for a full relationship when you got Sasuke and the Fourth War to deal with, but at least you got a girl to write letters to and go to when the war is over. It makes for moments the audience has to look forward to. Also, given how Hinata somehow went from being incredibly shy and unconfident even after the time skip, to suddenly having balls of steel to face the Rinnegan, it would have made sense if she at least had a better semblance of confidence after the time skip. Perhaps not completely fainting when seeing Naruto again, and perhaps a moment or two when she almost has the guts to tell him how she feels, just to make that transition a little more believable. I think that Naruto's crush on Sakura was perfectly fine. After all, audiences enjoy love triangles, but there was a specific moment in the early series where Sasuke, after awakening in the hospital from the Tsukuyomi, is greeted to Sakura hugging and crying, and Naruto has this sad look on his face, only to end it with a short smile and exits the room. Tsunade, who was also present, remarks that Naruto doing so was him being considerate of Sasuke and Sakura. I think this would have been a great moment for Naruto to get over his crush on Sakura. And just to toss it in there, some more development between Temari and Shikamaru, Ino and Sai. Yeah, the romance in the series is utter garbage. Another important relationship that gets heavily glazed over is the one between Neji and Hinata. The two never seem to actually reconcile after Neji's change of heart in the Chunin exams, so a scene where Neji apologizes and gets to understand Hinata's motivation should be added, as well as a few moments here and there where they seem to act more like brother and sister, or cousins. The two should play off of each other's strengths, giving Neji an even kinder heart and greater admiration for Naruto. That relationship may also add to strengthen Hinata's confidence change I mentioned after the time skip. Such an on-screen relationship would better justify his sacrifice for her and Naruto in the Fourth War. Who the fuck is Tenten in this series? Can we please get her doing something? Showing off her powers as the weapon expert that she's supposed to be. It would have been super cool if she actually got to do something with the amber purification jar and help seal away the Ten-Tails. That alone would do her a lot of justice given how little screen time she's gotten. She also seemingly has no distinct personality. She's a very typical female character with no defining characteristics. Honestly, the anime filler has the right idea with giving her more time to shine, but canonically she needs more development. Karin apparently took part in the same Chunin exams as Sasuke and Naruto, and has a moment where she is saved by Sasuke from a huge bear. It would have been cool to actually see her during the Chunin exams and have that scene introduced to us when it took place as a quick foreshadow of the connection in part 2. Kimimaro, a seemingly minor and unimportant villain, is a character who's suddenly linked to Kaguya Otsutsuki, the literal origin of chakra, much later in the series. During the Sasuke recovery mission, Kimimaro should be introduced with this in mind, and this could be the first time we hear about Kaguya, her descendants, and the creation of chakra, without spoiling too much, of course. When Obito dies and is greeted by Rin in the afterlife, I really wish he was greeted by a grown-up Rin. I get that she died when she was a child, but it would really serve to make the scene less pedophilic? Obito's like 30, and even though they made him look like his child self, you can't help but be like, fucking ew? I do think it would make a bit more sense if Rin slowly started to return Obito's feelings. Honestly, it's just a bit of a missed opportunity given how much the audience is supposed to care about the two as a pair towards the end of the Fourth War. While it can be implied that she does have feelings for Obito, she's only ever stated having a crush on Kakashi. Perhaps towards Obito's death, she can show a bit more romantic affection for him. Or perhaps Obito could have told Rin his feelings before he died. That's it! Mwah! Capolavoro! Chef Boyardi! That's all the changes I can think of. Have a good night.